is Hobby Talk with PSA Canada for May 25th, 2023. We are 1 hour sooner. Luke has literally been in that seat waiting since the last episode for this moment. Luke, good evening. How are you?
Different angle.
I know. No, you just
These
move the
are
camera. Just move the camera slightly. I see your tricks. I see your tricks, Luke. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Brad, how has this week been?
This week has been, great week.
It's-
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to complain. It's nice to be home. It's nice to be piling through. Orders are coming back. All our orders are off. To PSA, I think we got everything. I know here in Halifax right now, we don't have anybody's cards waiting to be shipped, which is great. And I think Luke, by the end of this week as well, is in the same predicament that we're completely caught up. Everything will be in Santa Ana, and now it's just waiting for them to come back.
Perfect. That's the reason why I wanted to ask. I just wanted to get how the update was and how things had progressed along. So that's good. Now that the cards are moving on their way, so that's great for everybody. James here is first with a comment. That's not hard to believe. Absolutely. Don't let Luke fool you. He waits with great preparation. Just he wants to be ready. He camped out just there since last week just to make sure.
I had no time to do that.
Didn't want to miss it. So one other thing I wanted to quickly touch on as well is in the same vein is obviously last week you had the trade night and you had the card showing up. So how was that?
Yeah, trade night again, full house. It was great. A lot more young kids, which was really good to see. Again, we started to drift off where it seemed like there was still a lot of kids, but not as many. This time it was, I'd say we had probably 25 to 30 kids under the age of 12 that were there, that were hustling, trading, doing their thing, which is always great to see as well. So,
okay. And how was the foot traffic as we're starting to wind into this? We're getting closer to the summer months now. So how's the foot traffic been on the show here?
Foot traffic was great. We had, I think, just over 200 people paid to come into the show, which was great. 172 tables, I think 60 plus dealers, but 172 tables set up. The biggest show we ever did. Doug was able to squeeze in a few more tables. So we offer free. It's free after 11 o'clock too, so we never do a count on that. But I'd say we probably have about 300 people through the door. That doesn't include dealers and friends. So when you add 65 dealers, usually they bring one or two people too. So we'd be pushing close to 400 or 500 people through the venue, and from 9 till 1 in a 4-hour span.
So we did marginally better than the CSC show.
There you go. Yes, we did.
A little bit less. I don't want to be mean. I'm trying to support the local. But like I have to poke fun a little bit. It was kind of funny. Kind of funny. I can't deny it. It was kind of funny. All right, Bobby Burrell here. Good evening. Luke has been contemplating opening the cup live on the show. I know he's meditating on it. He's thinking about it. Did you end up opening the tin, Luke?
Nope.
Not yet. You're holding firm.
I said until I'm done everything, and then I'll think about it.
All right. So Doug here says happy Thursday. Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. Yannick here. Good evening. Absolutely.
Good evening, Yannick. How are you? I'm not very happy with Yannick, right? Well, no, I shouldn't say I'm not very happy with Yannick, but we had a little banter going back and forth with the old Quebec Ramparts against my hometown Halifax Mooseheads. So
wow, going with the classic rivalries. All right.
Yeah, so he prevailed, but I'm a little bit mixed at it because the Ramparts were my former team, the Harfangs, Beauport, so they switched to the Ramparts. So I was a little partial to Quebec as well, and it was nice to see Patty Waugh get a victory. So
right, makes sense.
There he comes. There he goes.
Yeah. Here we go. Right, so no B-side live at the opening again. Not on theme. I'm not hiring Hockey 99 as any kind of a manager in any of these important things. He doesn't seem to understand. You don't go against the theme. You go with the theme. Doesn't get it. And by the way, it's a pretty weak song. I understand he loves it because it's like Jeff Wilson. It's like, dude, it's a weak song.
I'm trying to figure that. Oh, there's that who did this.
It's the Ruin Hobby I Love thing. And I'm like, guys, and look, let's be clear about this. This is a live stream about a bulk submitter in the hobby. We've all been in the hobby a long time, but let me just make this clear. Let me help y'all out. Hard as some people try. The hobby's not cool. And making a song about the hobby is about as lame as it gets. It's about, and I don't care what it is, good, bad, or indifferent. It's about as lame as it gets. I'm like, please don't. Get good music. Get better musical taste. I don't care what the song is about. Just not the hobby. Again, good, bad, or indifferent. Just no. The answer's no. So here, Brad, is someone who's overcome the odds of operating a successful LCS. What did you think of the video released by Alpha Investments? I actually like the video, but it's very intricate. Did you actually get a chance to see that video? It's pretty. It's actually almost an hour long. It's actually a full length video breakdown of LCSs.
Big time. I watched the whole thing, and I thought he did. I thought he did a great job. Honestly, he goes over that. I had a guy came in to me today, and he wants to open up a store, and he's a very nice guy. And I tried to explain. I'm actually going to flip him the video. I just was like, don't do it. You know,
Yeah.
Honestly, it's just not something I recommend. It's the same thing if someone says to open up a restaurant right now. I'm just like, don't do it. It's taking AMG Collectibles a long time to get where it's at. And, you know, it's not a cash cow. Like there's tons of people through, but operating expenses are through the roof. We buy product now. Like when Topps comes out for AMG, there's a lot of product. As soon as we get it, we put it out on the shelf. We can buy it cheaper online than what we just paid for it from the distributor. So there's lots of products you lose money on, and it's just very tough. And I think he did a great job of breaking that down. Everyone sees the home runs, but they don't see the.
So I want to emphasize. I want to emphasize as we're talking here. I put the video here. It's from Alpha Investments, the YouTube channel, and literally it's called "How to Open a Stupid Card Business." Now, again, just to be clear, if you ever follow this channel, Rudy doesn't take himself too seriously. He goes all over the place. He's a bit of a wacky character himself. But this video is a very sober breakdown with little snide jokes in between, but it's a fairly sober breakdown of the challenges of trying to run that kind of a business, the amount of cash that's required in order to make it happen, the amount of inventory you have to buy, and then what happens as soon as something goes wrong. Even if everything's perfect, he gave this scenario, even if it's perfect, how much cash outlay did you have to risk? How many things, and then what happens as soon as something goes wrong? And then you still need the cash to cover because one of these things didn't work out. You know, you're hanging on, you came off this amazing product, you sold all of it, great, and you were able to get lots of allocation. These are assumptions, by the way, because in real life, maybe you get the allocation, maybe you don't. Maybe you get as much as you want, maybe you get too much. Maybe you get stuck with a product you can't sell. All these things play into it, and he literally gives you, he simplifies it, but he gives you a really good breakdown of why this is not a business for everybody, and it's not the first thing you'd want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. So he is a character. I really enjoy his videos. He's a highly intelligent. You know, I don't know him personally, obviously, but highly intelligent, very quirky. But I just, Luke, do you watch him? Rudy?
No,
He's a very interesting dude, Luke. I think you would enjoy it in the background, if nothing else. But there are a lot of little in jokes where if you've been watching for a while, you'll get it. But there's a lot of little in jokes. But interspersed in between will be videos like this because he did once upon a time have a bit of a financial background and operate in that world. But now he operates as somebody who runs a warehouse with a lot of product, so he understands how to run a business. So when he gets in the weeds here, he at least knows what he's talking about. So it's not like, it's actually a pretty good breakdown of some of the challenges that you have to consider in that world. Again, with a lot of silliness interspersed in between. And then he'll go back to videos where it's just more nonsense and ridiculousness.
Yeah.
Yannick says, go Ramparts. Yep. Brad, not in the business of giving potential competitors competition advice. In this case, you can just send them a video. It's actually pretty good advice.
Like, so you know what? I'll respond to that one. So in the last 5 years, I've supplied and helped out 3 people open up hobby shops, and all 3 have failed. Mm-hmm. So I lent that, you know, from experience, I'm giving him the best advice I possibly can. Mm-hmm. Unless you have deep pockets, you have all these things. You have from like I think I used the analogy once before. Like it's like you take a cow into a butcher. You have to, in order to make money off of that cow, you have to utilize all the components of it. Mm-hmm. For an LCS now to survive, make money, and pay employees, you can't just be one of anything. AMG has the fortunate, we start with, as a bulk submitter, we have good allocation. We deal in vintage cards. We dabble in comics. We deal in dollar cards. We deal in discounts. We promote a show. We have trade nights. Mm-hmm. We support some breakers. We are opening up a breaking division. You have to do all those things in order to succeed now. And it makes it very difficult. You know, it's very difficult to succeed, even for someone that has been established like AMG has. So.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And one other thing I'll add as well is that we made jokes about it in a lot of the previous episodes we talked about it, or on Friday when we'll talk about it. Like even we'll talk about like again the reason I like the Alpha Investments video is because he uses very generic baseline examples that still tell you what some of the challenges are. It gives you enough information where if you don't not too familiar with it, it gives you enough to at least understand the basics of what you need to know. But perfect example what we talked about. We had talked about that those AEW products we've talked about on the Friday show some of the challenges of that. I went in and I chatted with you when we were at the expo last, and I bought one of the boxes. You know, I chatted with you, and I got a little discount tossed in. But you guys were trying to clear out the last of the couple boxes, and you were
Yep.
holding some of those boxes forever. And it's one of those things where you sold some, but at the same time, you also sold some to me. And I'm way out of province for you guys. So it's just to be able to sell a couple of those. But guess what? What if you're somebody who doesn't have that ability and you're still holding the product? At what point? So how far do you discount it? Because there's still a cost when you purchase in the first place. And if that product doesn't move and you tell Upper Deck, well, I'm not taking it, then how are you going to get the rest of the stuff? You have to take some of this stuff occasionally to get the other stuff that you do want, that you know will sell, and it'll go right out the door right away.
Yeah. I'm doing a little napkin math here just to kind of throw out a number. This is based on all facts.
Yeah, and
So
good evening, Jeff.
Upper Deck Extended comes out in June 6th, so in two weeks roughly. So
Yeah.
Upper Deck Extended. So in order to maintain our proper allocations, AMG Collectibles will buy 600 boxes of Upper Deck Extended. 600 boxes will cost $79,350. So you have to put out $80,000 in capital. And on those 600 boxes, they're going to make $2. Going to make $1,650 if we sell it all. So you're laying out 80 grand to make $1,600 to move it all. Now you could put out, but if you don't sell it and make such a small margin just to move it, you can sit on it. We could put it out at 160, 170 a box, but it's not going to sell. Then what are you going to do with the next product comes out because you have no money? So it's going to creates havoc. So you have to know how to move things, and it's tough. But you have any business where it's like, hey, lay out 80 grand to make two and sell 600 individual boxes. That's tough, right?
How about that?
That's a
ROI?
2%. That's a 2% margin.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
and thank you, Brad, for giving that concrete example. But isn't that the conversation we've had on the Friday
Yeah.
show before and talked about it? It's like, I think there's an assumption in cards. It's like, oh man, you must be making money hand over fist. It's like margins traditionally are very small. This boom period where a lot of people were turning cards into like multiples of multiple, that's the anomaly. That hasn't been the rule in the cards, but in the boxes either, because so many people have already taken their piece. The manufacturer made it at price X, sent it to the distributor who paid Y, and then the dealer on the third side of it, the person who gets it at the end of the distribution, pays Y plus 20%, 30%, 50%, 150%, whatever the number they come up with. You're the third person on that, and then the consumer's the fourth person on this exchange.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And then everyone comes back. It's like, oh yeah, well, what did you make on the cup? Okay, well, you have to buy all these other things in order to get your allocation for the cup. So we get, say, 48 boxes of the cup. We make $400 a box. We make $19,000 on the cup.
Yeah. But
So
I think the
buyer
key point is
allocation-
that if it was just the cup, then you'd buy 600 of the cup. You'd be like, okay, can I just have the 600 tins of the cup? I can
Absolutely.
sell that.
Yeah. And it's not quite like overall you do good, but it requires a lot of capital and a lot of know-how so you don't get stuck. Because all it takes, if you lie down and you don't pay attention to your inventory, unless you have unlimited cash flow, if you don't do that in a month, in a 4 to 6 week period, boom, that can be the nail in the coffin for your business. Right. And it already did happen when Upper Deck had all those releases that were coming out all at once. It was the nail in the coffin for a lot of businesses, right?
Agreed. Thank you for that. And that was Business Minute with Brad Hartland. I hope you enjoyed
Yeah,
that. That you got a good answer on that. So hopefully that gives some insight. That was actually very very. Thank you, Brad. That was a good piece to add in there. And as I mentioned, Jeff, good evening. So we're here, Brad. You can make a living slinging cards. You can make any business successful. It is a very specific niche business, but it is still business. The rules of business do still apply. So Brad continues to add aspects of the business, breaking trade shows. What's like a sports bar inside AMG? What we need to do is we need to attach the card shop to the brewery.
Exactly. Eh? I can say that you will never see me back in the restaurant or bar business ever in my life. 20 years, and when COVID hit, we lost everything, and
Mhm.
I'm happy with everything. I have no regrets, but that is it. Hockey 99. You will not see that happen.
But again, if you do insert the kiosk at the brewery, listen, I'm willing to come down
There you
once a month to come. I'll tend shop for you once a month. It's like, fly me down on the Learjet. We can make this happen. James says, unfortunately, a vast number of people lack the knowledge and time required to start a business. Very true, James. Let alone run an existing business. Then there's a required knowledge to be successful. Very true words, James. Very true words. But I think, though, particularly the reason why I really wanted, I'm glad that you gave that good concrete example, is that the sport car business is particularly unique. The rules are the same. It's still profits, cash flows, everything related to all the normal stuff that applies in business still applies. But we're in a very unique niche where the margins can be so small and you've got to outlay so much and take so much risk up front, and you're playing in this. That's why I say, when a lot of people are talking about how Fanatics is going to change this, it is going to change it, because even if they do nothing else than adjust the distribution allocation model, that could completely, that's going to require a tactical meeting in in the ready room. It's like, all right, this has completely changed how we do all these numbers, because it's like, who are we getting this from? Where's the allocation coming from? How do we get the products? That's the question.
No, absolutely. And I do have faith in Fanatics, and I'm hoping they're going to be able to see this. That's I think they're going to do a good job recognizing the hobby shops that are in place,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully they'll allow them product to make money. And it's not don't just give them product that anyone. For 2 years you could buy a box of cards. I mean, it was proven. You go to Walmart, Target, you buy a blaster for 25, you sell it for 60. There was no skill, there was no knowledge, nothing was required to make money on the unopened product game for 2 years. Now it's a completely different ball game. We're back to the days where, you go back 4 or 5 years ago, you have to know what to hold and you have to know what to move. And it's exciting. It's fun too.
We were so close to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
Absolutely.
We were so close. We were so close. Know when to walk away. Know when to run. We were so close. All right. So Agagi99 says here, how come Len is never on these streams? Is he still active to some degree? I think Eric has requested the lack of Len.
Yeah, exactly.
He's very fearful. And I can't.
So I have offered Len anytime, but Len doesn't have a cell phone, and he's not a social media guy, and it's just not the place for him. But he always knows that he's wide open.
Right. All right, let's take a look here. Peter Collect. It's like, went to Montreal Expo, did not see Brad. Went to Toronto Expo, did not see Brad. Went to previous Toronto Expo, did not see Brad. Did you literally avoid the PSA Canada booth? I was by there a bunch of times. Brad was there.
I know we did miss Peter. So Peter came by to drop cards off on Sunday. And then we left to go to Montreal. So I was there Friday and Saturday, and then Peter came on Sunday. So
this is I don't know if you guys remember. It's like, do you guys remember the polka dot door? This is getting dangerously close to a pokeroo situation is what's happening right now. Getting dangerously close to a pokeroo situation. That's a Canadian reference. The Canadians will get that one. The Americans may be scratching their heads a little bit on that one. Yeah, the Canadians get it. The Canadians get it. You just have to be at the correct vintage and you will know that reference. But no, fair enough, Peter Collect. Fair enough. I don't know what to tell you, but I saw Brad. I didn't see him in Montreal. I did see him in Toronto, and then I saw him just after Montreal, and Luke was with him at some point through Montreal. So,
and I could tell Peter, I personally processed all your 4 or 5 or 6, whatever there was, the orders. So they're all done, and they are all in Santa Ana, California.
Nice. So let me quickly touch on one thing that we talked about, and I'll actually pull it from the comment because we chatted just before we were getting started here. We wanted to make sure we reference the comments. By the way, thank you all for leaving the comment on the last couple of episodes. The team has been reading them. They do reply on some of them, but we also read and get a chance to chat on them a little bit. One of these was really good. It was really good because it touched on something that I had been talking to Brad about and something we're working on, and we're actually, one of the things I was talking to him about actually fit right into this comment. So I'll read you the comment, and then we'll talk about it just for a second, and then we'll get the hockey and Peter's question. Actually, hold on. Before I do, let me read it real quick. Unrelated. How long is the polite time to wait until asking for a submission number? Asking for a friend. I always love the asking for a friend. That's important.
Peter, we're gonna give you yours right now.
There you go. Perfect. All right. So let me read this comment here. So this was from Chris Alb on last week's episode. And it was a very good comment because it touched on something that we had been working on and talking about anyway. So it's a couple of related questions here. How about a tutorial on how to pre-grade your own cards before submitting? We specifically talked about that, so good on you for thinking of that. This would likely adjust your client's expectation, reduce you having to deal with aggressive or annoyed customers. I think there'll still be some of that, but this is a legitimate question that comes up when these guys are at the expo or any of them, and they're at the table and they're asking questions about this. So I think it's very helpful. That's a very helpful number. I love that.
That did not look like that when I hit the send button. Sorry.
You want to add 9671111? He could at least order pizza. Anyway, all right.
Sorry.
So I know I could use this. Centering is pretty obvious. Corners are easy to understand. Surface is trickier, but edges, especially with vintage O-Pee-Chee cards, is a mystery to me. So the reason I like this comment is because it's being specific. And Brad and I, this is not a joke. Literally before we hit live, I was mentioning this, and then Brad said, hey, there was a comment in there, and I started scanning it, and I had seen it. But I had the same idea. I go, no, there are some of these issues where it'd be really helpful to give specifics. And I think that can be something we can definitely do. How rough is acceptable for vintage edge to grade Heightley? If I understand is correct, a straight edge or a vintage O-Pee-Chee on a vintage O-Pee-Chee raises alarms about trimming, and that kind of plays into Hockey's question. Then a non-perfect edge must be acceptable for a good grade above, but how about non-perfect? So it's very specific. So I'm glad this is a very specific question. 100%, I agree. I literally had this conversation with Brad, and I'm sending him a list of different things that I want to talk about and topics like this. We want to make some videos. So we'll definitely have that. And I love the pre-grading thing because there's two angles to it. There's the specific, love it. There's the specific issues, because I actually would love to incorporate more of that, because there are going to be some issues that Brad is expert in. There are going to be some issues Luke is expert in. Sometimes Kevin is the Pokemon guy. If we want to know some of the Pokemon, I don't know anything about Pokemon. I could probably grade a Pokemon card if I had to and do a pre-grade. I could see obvious flaws, but some of those issues may be more prone to a certain flaw than others. That's where a little bit of specific expertise might be helpful. And for somebody who doesn't know Pokemon, well, show them. Okay, so for these Pokemon cards, this is what you're looking for. These are the things that are a particular problem. By the way, this vintage issue particularly is bad for centering. So there might be some more forgiveness for centering. Why? Because they traditionally really bad centered. Okay, that might be something to know. The 7980 O-Pee-Chee, the Gretzky. These are normal things that they see on the edges, and this, and this, and this. That's the kind of information I'd like to see provided a little bit, and that's something we're talking about working on. So it's a really great comment, and I wanted to make sure we acknowledge it as well.
Yeah, I agree. And we appreciate getting those comments, because that's going to be able to, we started this off slow for a reason, and now we kind of know the direction we want to go with the channel, and now we're going to be providing a lot more information going forward, as Carlos just said. So it's all part of the process.
It's not a joke. I've been working on a list of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Most of that stuff's been sitting there for a while. It's like we were just waiting for us to have a conversation and be like, all right, are we good to go? Does this make sense? Yep. Full steam ahead. Let's start doing some of that stuff. Sounds awesome. Okay.
And one thing too that we'll mention, myself and Luke have talked about it for over the last couple of months, especially. So we are going to be offering through PSA Canada. PSA Canada is evolving, as we all talked about, and changing different things. But the group that is in PSA Canada is always going to be offering group submissions. So one thing we're going to be adding is review. Me and Luke try to come up with a plan to say, okay, how are we going to do this? We're going to offer a service to people that want to send their cards and that we will review them. There might even be some sort of a guarantee. We're working on some angles there. Some exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. So we've hired one individual that reviews all cards currently for 5 or 6 people. He does all the cards for me personally, and he does all the cards from AMG from the business standpoint, plus I think 5 or 6 more guys he's doing now as well. So we've hired him to come aboard the team, and we're just working on a plan and the cost, how it's going to work. And he's on a modern cards. He's about, I'd say 90 to 95%, 910. Mm-hmm. So we're just working on pricing and how we're going to do that, but that's going to be an exciting rollout.
Bold move. I like it. All right. So real quick. So let me touch on this one here. Let me actually grab this one first. I'll skip ahead and then come back. Will the channel include thumbnails, annoying faces, and clickbait? It's just going to be Luke. I think his head will be floating. It's going to be our part of our branding. It's like Luke's going to be there looking at you sternly for asking this question. Very sternly. Very sternly. So here. So this one is for you, Luke. What are your thoughts on trimming being back in the news? We've got our annual Olympic cycle of trimming being back in the news. So what are your thoughts?
I have no thoughts because I don't even know what he's talking about. I don't watch the news. I haven't had time to watch the news or see any of these videos and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know what he's talking about.
Right. So let me quickly give a quick review, and then you can give some thoughts based on these quick kind of couple bullet points. Every couple of years, people in the hobby get reminders that trimming exists because apparently they didn't know. So what happened this time around is that some specific examples have been cited. I think it was Evan Mathis, former NFL player, made a video basically giving a mini tutorial on how to do certain types of alterations on the cars, including trimming. So that led into a series of videos and things where people talked about this. And even though it is an issue because that's the whole point of authentication is to make sure stuff isn't being altered and to make sure that's a big part of this. And it has been an issue that has been discussed pretty regularly. Back in 2019 was the last time we had a very, very widespread discussion on it, including on YouTube, including on hobby forums, including in a variety of different places. I know because I was there. And I had videos on it, and other people had videos on it, and there was a number of that. But every couple of years we get it again because a new cycle of people, I guess, didn't know it existed. And they're like, what? People trim cards? Yes, they've always trimmed cards. And they will always try to trim cards because there's a financial incentive to do so. Like just at a high level. As long as there's a financial incentive, somebody will try to cheat. So and that's really all it is. So really, what are your thoughts on trimming being back in the news? It's really trimming. We know what it is. What are your thoughts on it being back in the news again?
I don't like you said. I mean, it's always stuff like this has always happened or whatever. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's a matter of people talking about it again, and it's a cycle of people coming in, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know about it. A lot of people haven't heard about it, and then they think it's something brand new.
Yeah, and that's fair. The reason why I have to kind of resist the urge, and Brad, I got to be honest with you, I have
Sure.
to resist. I know I saw the comment. We'll get to it in a minute. We'll get to it.
Sherry just texted me at the same time. Sorry, I completely caught me off guard. I read her. Sherry's like, "What is with Hockey 99?"
Oh, that's a general question that I can ask at all times.
No,
That's a
but
question I could always ask.
Because for Christmas she got me the Manscaped full kit. So she's like, "He knows way too much about you," and I started.
Wow. That's more information than I needed to know. But thank you for sharing. So anyway, what I was going to say was that yeah, we've got our annual cycles. Don't worry, Luke. You got some time. I think around 2026, I expect to have this discussion again. Because we're pretty much every year in about 3 or 4 year cycles, so we'll be doing another one in 2026 ish. So we covered this one. We got there you go. Jot down the number, everybody. Jot it down.
Yeah.
Yeah, share your email you, so cover that. Okay. So when the channel include thumbnails, we touched on this one here. I'm holding on to my rock cards until grading prices come down. I wouldn't hold my breath here. It sounds like it wouldn't happen anytime soon. I would not be holding my breath. Inflation doesn't work backwards. Inflation doesn't work backwards.
You did a little clip, I think, on that, Carlos, as well, or maybe it was Neo, or I think it was you. It just said, as long as until you see the volume start to come down, prices are not going to come down. Why would they? It's just
all I have to do is look over, and like I said, GemRate data is not the be-all and end-all, but it's a very good resource. They've done a very good job giving good information. And here's the thing: if I look at GemRate and I see the PSA graded 1.2 million cards 2 months ago, 1.2 million cards last month, this month right now, based on the weekly thing that I'm seeing, maybe they only hit 1 million. Let's say they hit 1 million. That's 1 million cards in a down hobby economy. So if you're PSA, we're like, so I would lower the price. Why? Oh, but then more people can send. We're grading 1 million cards now. How many cards do? Yes, we want to make business, but at the same time, like, how much business do we actually need? 1 million cards is a lot. As long as we're being highly profitable and 1 million cards a month ish, somewhere in that vicinity, why on earth? If anything, if they wanted to bring it down and give themselves a little more breathing room, they'd increase the price, not lower it. They'll do specials. I can guarantee you they'll do specials there. If they feel like they need to adjust and tweak, do a 30-day or 60-day special, which is something they've been doing right now. It would not surprise me if that becomes the thing going forward. Back in 2018, and I've shown on this live stream the sheet from when Len was running it under Platinum Promotions. It was $8 US per card. Mm-hmm. And there were people that still complained at $8 US per card. That was 2018. That wasn't 2013. That wasn't 2012. That was 2018. Late 2018. Almost 2019. But I don't think we're getting back there.
Lettuce back then was, I think, $2 as well.
Sorry?
A head of lettuce was like $2 back then.
Crazy times, Luke. Crazy times. Korean Carver here, catching you live. Watched your last video last night and wanted to ask Brad if setting up at the National, going as a buyer, or both. So let's answer that question first.
Yeah, so I always go to the National first as a collector. Every year, it's something I go as that. This year, I think I'll have some more involvement with collectors and PSA at the National. But I'll be there from Tuesday until Sunday. Sherry's coming this year as well. I think Luke's going to make his way down. Super excited, but I'll be there the whole time, and I'll have lots of time to hang out and dinners, whatever we're going to do. I'm going to be a part of the whole experience. I take it all in and I enjoy it. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then the second question is, are you going live Friday night like normal? So I'm probably, so based on where we're at right now, like I said, well, unless unless the lotto numbers come up, probably I'm going to be at home base. So I'm going to be live on Friday like normal. We'll see. We might see if we can get Brad live from the National. We'll see what we can arrange.
I'd love that. That'd be awesome.
So hopefully that answers that question. Rock hard review with a Brad Hartland authentication sticker in the top loader. Ooh.
Yeah, I haven't seen. I even use a guy for that now. I think I looked at too many cards. Give me like 80s back vintage stuff, but modern cards now, I don't know.
Yep. So real quick here, Carter Warren, good evening. Yep, Manscaped, we covered that one. PSA Canada knows and tells all. Oh, literally tells all, clearly. And that is correct. Touche. All right, so let me scroll here. I remember when Nat Turner said he would like to see grading come down to 12. Maybe the world was different then. Yes. I think Nat Turner was thinking that, honestly, like I said, I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Just, I think when he said it, I think he had every intention of bringing that cost back down. And for a long time, I thought eventually there would be an option. Now, one important caveat I want to make that may still provide an avenue. The $8 US grading back then, and I know this because I had the sheet and I literally showed it to everybody. The $8 US grading had a $99 maximum declared value. So if you put a really restrictive maximum declared value, meaning the intention is these are like set registry cars, like stuff that you're not trying to flip for mega dollars or whatever, there's always a possibility that could be a thing. But again, when they're getting so many cards now anyway, if Nat tried to pitch the $12, they would like tackle him and tie him in the closet and throw him in there until he came to his senses. Because as long as they're getting so many cards submitted, there's no reason. It would be terrible business. Why are you taking less money? What for? Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm just saying that, like, in all honesty, at this point, you're already making tons of money at the current level. Yes, you could get more submissions at the lower price. That's true. But would you make enough money to offset the loss per card in revenue? If the answer is yes, then sure, do it. But if the answer is no, or it's the same, well, then there's no reason to take the additional work for more money. Or for less money, I should say. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
It's back to business, right?
Yeah, no, it's just common sense. Like if you run a burger joint and you sell out a burger, you make 500 burgers every day and you sell out every day and you're charging $5. Why would you go to 4? Mm-hmm. Right? It's just business 101.
Okay. Well, I told him. Well, I was saying that like I use sometimes it's helpful to use like extreme examples. Right now, like I refresh my memory. What's the base? I think it's $27 is like the base price right now for the $4.99 declared value. Yep. Okay, so and right now that's the price that you guys can have based on what PSA is doing, whatever. Yep. And like I said, they're getting 1 million cards a month right now. If I told PSA, hey, you guys can get 800,000 cards a month, which is 3/4 of what you're getting right now, and you could triple the price. You could triple the price, but you get 3/4. They're like, sounds great. Fantastic. Let's do that. It's like, wait, why would you? But you're getting less cards in. Yes, but we're making way more money.
Yeah.
We've tripled the price, but we've only decreased the amount submitted by 1/4. That means we won. That means we actually it's better for us. We don't want more cards. We want more profit.
And do you know the other thing that if you look now, go back 5 years ago when it was $8 US, and today, say it's $15 US for a special, and they put it out there. Mm-hmm. The amount of money that PSA and collectors, especially since Nat and his group took over, the amount of money that they're investing in infrastructure, technology, and all this stuff doesn't come for free. Now you see even more pressure on PSA being the industry leader about trimming and all these scandals and this and that. Like the amount of money that is poured in just simply alone, just to what they deal with fraud, from slabs, they're ever changing, evolving, all these things they're doing, building the database and the team they have. They go from 300 employees to 1,700 employees. All this stuff comes with a cost. So there's that magic number. Maybe there will be a $12 for set, like under $99 at some point, but all the stuff costs money, and we expect more. And this, I'm saying this truly from Brad, the collector of PSA graded cards, even if I had no affiliation whatsoever. I want PSA to keep investing in all these things because I want them to maintain being the industry leader, and I want them to be able to detect this stuff. You know, it's very difficult. You know, there's no way I couldn't tell the difference between some of these professional trimmers out there, the way they're trimming the cards. Who can tell the difference on that? They're doing it like just like the cards were produced, right? So the more like with gem technology and fingerprinting all these cards, so they won't be submitted twice. It's like every time there's so many people, I shouldn't say every time, there's so many people out there that are trying to beat the system, whether it's PSA, Beckett, SGC. It's like, oh, I got them that one. I got that one through. Oh, I sent it to Beckett. It didn't grade. I sent it to SGC. Oh, I graded. I tricked them. I got them. Everyone's trying to beat the grading companies all the time, and we were all guilty of doing that. You know what I mean? But that's what it's become now. So the more technology and the more advancements, and it's going to be exciting to see where all the grading companies will be in the next 2 or 3 years. Hopefully innovation just keeps playing a big factor.
Right. So let me scroll through here. Kyle here said, hey guys, keep the great work. Thank you. Question for you guys. I'm from Victoria, BC. What would be the best place to submit my cards to? What's the closest location for Kyle?
So to mail them in, it would be, you could either mail direct to PSA yourself if you wanted to send them through us. The best thing if you are in BC is to bring them to one of the shows. So all the BOSA shows, Luke attends every one of them. You can drop the cards off in person in there. That's the easiest, most cost-effective way. But if you are in Victoria, you can either ship them to Luke in Edmonton, ship them to us, or ship direct to PSA.
Good stuff. So here, we already took care of that one. So thank you, John, for the question. And you've got the number, so perfect. Let me skip ahead here. Jeremy, Paul, good evening. Is there a way to find out which cards are with each sub number? I think it would be just asking directly, right?
Yeah, no, it honestly, I'll say to Jeremy, it's too hard. You know, if we've got, 5,000-6,000 active submitters right now. So if everyone wants to pay, me and Luke, and I'm saying this, it's going to, hopefully it doesn't come across the wrong way, but I want it to come across a little bit stern. It's like, if you submit 5 or 6 cards with us, then we make $5 or $6. And if we answer 15 questions and we give everyone their grades after they're graded and all this, well, we're going to have to charge $50 a card in order to make money. Like we do love the hobby as much as anyone, but at the same time, we're a business and we have to make money. So I'm getting a little better at saying no to people because it's just difficult. It's like, hey, can I get my grades? Can you send me a picture of that? Can you do this? No, sorry, we can't. Like there has to be that limit where you have to draw it. And I seen what Luke's going through the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's 18. Again, it is our job, so we shouldn't complain. We are making money, but there is that point that we have to just kind of say no, right? And it's okay for us to say no to someone.
Now, I will add one other thing as well, and it is separate from that piece, and it is that every day that goes by, the attempts are made to increase the integration between the data the PSA has, and there may come a time down the road where it'll be a little easier for people to be able to a little bit more self-serve, because that's kind of the ideal. The ideal is you have an order number and you can actually kind of correspond one to the other, but that's going to need more data integration than we have right now. Because if you could associate it and say, hey, here's your number, you can check it out. There's your information you're looking for. Knock yourself out. It's right there. That would be the ideal, because then you have the information you need and you can look it up and keep track of it, and it saves everybody a little bit more time and a little bit of effort.
Yep.
Scan ahead here. So Mike, Canadian Cards, is sub with Brad in February and have others. Great service. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. We appreciate that, Mike.
Jeff Jones here. Good evening. If the QR code on the back of the scans is the wrong card, can they fix that remotely, or do they need the slab card back?
That's a good question.
Well, it would be like, so here's the thing. I don't know what their database is like, but truthfully, if the QR code is scanning it as the wrong card, so the only question I would have, Jeff, is does the barcode on the front also scan to the wrong card? Because I've had, with the PSA app, I've had it scanning correctly because it didn't quite read it right. And then I ran it through again, and the second time it ran through correctly. Also, one important thing. I want to make a quick caveat because I just remembered this. Sometimes when it scans the wrong item, they uses the same serial number for a PSA and a PSA DNA card. So what I might recommend to you, first thing I would check here, and this is just reminded me, I would punch in the number on the site, make sure that it's PSA or PSA DNA, depending on which one it is that you're looking for, probably PSA, and make sure that that's still showing the wrong card. If it's still showing the wrong card, then that's a customer service issue that it would be worth checking. But I have had people read it and go, "Oh, that's not the card that this is," because it pulled up the PSA DNA thing, and it was a card, but it was the wrong item. But then you clicked on the one that was the PSA card, and it was the correct item. I'm just throwing that out there. Just something that I have in fact seen and a question that I've personally answered.
Yeah, and I'll see Jeff and I'll shoot that over to our customer service at PSA to get an answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely. Either way, it's worth checking, but I'm just letting everybody know that I have totally seen that. And it is something because I had somebody go like, "Oh, is this in the right thing?" And I went to check it myself. And that's how I figured out that it had the same serial number. They used the same serial number in both databases, and it pulled up the data for both, but it happened to grab the DNA one first, so they were confused. And then it turned out that if you click the switch, and it's like, look at the other one, in the other database, it was under the correct info. Just bear that in mind. My stack of cards saving for the PSA registry sets up is collecting dust, waiting for $12 bulk. Hearing the PSA doesn't need to come down to $12 too, but old and tired to collectors. Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. Let's scroll ahead. Absolutely, no problem. Yeah. And the Korean cardboard is like he thing is he's right. Like, and I understand his position. But it doesn't change that it doesn't change the fact that if they don't need to come down, they won't. Yeah. I think it's going to have to be specials. I think that's the avenue most likely would be my guess that that's a special. And like I said, I've seen this and I do not blame him one iota because I totally understand. And if that's the price point that you're looking for, unfortunately, then you're going to have to look at a few of the competitors who have that price point because right now everybody in the space is looking at their individual situation as a company and trying to figure out what makes sense for them. I think it's going to have to be through specials or not at all for a long time. Because waiting for it, I can't tell you that there's any imminent reason they would have to do so.
Yeah. And hopefully they do. Obviously, even back to that comment, we want to see the price go down, but until it makes sense, then it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like when I look at that, it's like I say to myself something very important. Like, I don't work for PSA. As a collector, like, make it $1 grading. Like, give me the cheapest grading humanly possible. I'll take it. Sounds great. But at the same time, it's like if I was sitting at PSA, I wouldn't. Because all I'd have to do is look at the number. I look at it and go like, I understand what you're saying, but I don't need the $12 submissions right now. It makes no sense for me. I have so many submissions at this other price point that I literally do not need them. It's not that your cards are unworthy or that I don't want them or whatever. It's like, if the number of submissions fell to that point, we're like, okay, great. Introduce that other price tier, bring it in, either at 99, declared value or something else, or 149 or whatever you came up with. Then it would totally make sense. And then boom, they flip the switch and activate it. But if they see $1 million again this upcoming month, at the end of the month we check it out and it comes up close to $1 million, I'd expect not to see it again. Maybe a special of some kind, but otherwise you won't see it. Peter says the volume 1 million a month does seem to signal the card market is healthy under higher participation than pre-COVID. Yeah, because now it's not the backlog anymore. That's not the excuse. Now it's net new stuff because stuff's coming back. So when stuff comes back and you're still getting 1 million month after month after month, somebody's submitting new stuff.
I know it's like, honestly, it really does blow my mind away when you look at that number, 1 million plus cards every month. And from everything PSA is going to keep on growing with that. And they don't see it declining.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The other piece of the puzzle as well is you already kind of covered it when you did the expo here, and you got more submissions than the previous expo, which was a record number of submissions for that expo.
Yeah,
and that's at the current price point levels. So it's like the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, like we're going.
That's the same thing with Edmonton.
Yeah,
sorry,
Luke.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say that's the same thing with Edmonton. I mean, I've been looking at stuff like some of the names I've recognized or whatever from people like submitting last year and then this year, and in between they haven't submitted anything. But I mean, like there's a ton of stuff that they have like they're holding onto, and I mean, there's stuff out there that I don't know where it is, or where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Tons of cards out there.
Well, you just look at the number we submitted as PSA Canada. I'm going to say in the last 4 to 6 weeks, close to 30,000 cards. You know what I mean? Like that's a big number. Like that's a lot of transactions from a team of 4.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, and the key is we're in a market 1/10 the size of the United States. You're one bulk submitter from one section of the market in one thing. That doesn't count people that have their own PSA collectors memberships and send it themselves. It doesn't count people that use other bulk submitters. It doesn't count all the people stateside that submit down there. Every time, like I said, every time. We should get a sponsorship for GemRate because we're promoting them the heck out of them. But every time I look at that graphic, and I see 1,000,000 plus, I just go another month, okay, and I keep watching it month by month because every month at the end of the month I'm interested. I'm like, all right, would you wind up? But the thing is, I'm watching the weekly one, 240,000, 260,000, and I'm like, well, if you add up the weeks, and it's like that's looking like it's going to get close, if not over 1,000,000 again.
Yeah.
So somebody's still submitting stuff, and a lot of it. Mike's asking here for the next special. So how many seconds of advance notice do you expect to get on the next special, the next grading special?
I'll probably hear about it on YouTube.
Now that's not a joke, Mike. That's been a running gag. Every time there's like a special, I'm like, so Brad, how many seconds of advance notice did you get on that one?
I know that they are incredibly good at keeping that close to their chest, and I always said, again, I don't know this at all, but I think I joked around with Carlos about it, even with Luke. I think that maybe Nat Turner and Ryan Hogue, the president of PSA, make a decision together with the two of them in the office, or they make that decision and then they say, okay, let's run it, and then everyone else knows. They hold that so close, and it's impressive.
Yeah. So James here says, I would think that for the purpose of set registry collectors, there could potentially be a market for the commons grading tier. Logistically, it could be a big ask though. So the last sentence is a key piece, and the first section of it, and like I said, I know why a Korean collector was frustrated, and I've actually heard from him the similar frustration. By the way, I know a lot of other set registry collectors that have been very frustrated, and I totally get it. The thing is, if you guys go back in time and listen to some of the old lives, we have made the pitch and the point that it would be nice to have something for the set registry people. It'd be nice to have something for the set registry people. If you follow me on Fridays, I've said about 150,000 times, it would be nice to have something for the set registry people. But I don't disconnect my business hat thinking about it from my perspective if I was in that office going like, we don't need it. And it's not in a flippant way. It's just like, where are we going to get this additional? People think that they don't spend enough time looking at the cards now. People think they're haphazardly just grading cards and throwing them out the door now. You add another tier at a lower price point to make it viable for you. Okay, cool. How many more cards are you going to submit? And who's going to grade these additional cards? Because a lot of these set registry folks are also vintage. And vintage is slower right now, regardless, even at the current price point. That is a fact. So tell me where, if these additional ones for set registry purpose, I'm only asking the question. For set registry purpose, if you're somebody in the vintage category who wants to submit it for those, which totally makes sense. Hey, I have vintage set registry too, so I do understand. But I haven't submitted my own cards for that. I've already bought them already graded. So here's my question. If you're a person who wants to submit these cards, you're sitting on a stack and you want to submit it for this, and vintage is already slower, and there's less vintage graders now, what on earth makes you think that they're going to be able to move any faster if they get a sudden influx of like $10 vintage cards by the stack at this lower price point? I'm merely asking a question.
Mm-hmm.
For ultra modern, obviously they got more graders, so for sure. But at the same time, again, you're getting 1,000,000 cards, the majority of which are, half of which are TCG. So the Pokemon, the reason all the specials are focused on like TCG, half of them, is because TCG is making them a lot of money. People are submitting the Pokemons and the Charizards, right? Mm-hmm. So I understand what they're doing. It makes sense to me, but again, I agree. As a set registry person, it would be nice to have. And as a person who collects vintage and stuff, I would love, there are cards in my collection that for PC purposes, I would love to have at that lower price tier as well. So yeah. I would also love that. But I'm also not surprised it hasn't been given. I would think it would not be too difficult for PSA to support some kind of export orders to CSV feature, dump out any of my order screen. That's why I say, like, I would like to see, and just to be clear, I would like to see increased enhancements. Now, you're starting to see a little bit of that with some of the stuff with the apps. They're starting to introduce more information in there. That's why I said I'd like to see some more. And this is not just for PSA Canada; it's for all the bulk submitters who are doing a lot of business with them. Wouldn't it be nice to make an interface that they could provide to the customer because they're generating these order numbers? So if PSA made it a little bit easier to get that information so that the customers could see it too, that way they could look at it and just access it at their own will. Well, the technology is moving further all the time. We got the pop reports can pull a lot of data. We've got a lot of information coming out of that. They've started to incorporate stuff in the app today for people that are submitting so you can see your submissions in like different ways and whatever. So it means the tech is being upgraded. So if they can keep that going and pass it along to this side of it, that could help out a lot of other people as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're going to have that, obviously PSA is investing heavily in the Canadian market. And by the end of this year, there'll be a lot of changes, and it's going to be exciting to see all the things that we announce over the summer. But it's still hard. Like even if we linked directly, we had all the orders where you could see them at psacard.com. You could go in and see your order status. The problem comes when you merge all the different tiers. This creates that problem. So if you have 3 value cards, 1 regular, 1 express, 1 dual, 1 research, 1 reholder, it's still to put all those orders together. That's the number one advantage of using us. I know Peter talks about it all the time and promotes us for that. That's the number one advantage of using PSA Canada and a group submitter. Number one thing is we combine the orders so you don't spend a fortune in shipping, right? That's the number one service. So maybe you have to pay an extra $1 a card. Maybe you have to pay an extra $2.50, $2 a card to get your card graded. But you add these extra services that you save that you don't even realize. So.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Novagrower says, dropping off my resume at PSA Canada headquarters tomorrow. There you go.
He's VIP. Novagrower is a VIP.
Yep. Sounds good, Mike. Thank you. But thank you for the question. It was a good question. Under the radar is all these custom set registry checklists. Yes. The backlog of these is over a year. I may have a couple in the queue, but that maybe is only used. Yeah. And it has been slower. So I agree with that. It has been slower. Reholders. I believe the answer is yes. What's the deal on reholders?
Yeah, so we can offer we have some clients that do a lot of reholders. So yeah, 30. If you want to send in 1 card, it's $30 Canadian. I think it's on the website, 30 US. If you want to go to psacard.com, so that we have a little bit of a break on, so we can do that. And if you had a bunch, we'd be happy to work with you on that. I have one guy that's reholder in every set from 30. No, he has. I think he has every hockey set, to tell you the truth. I think he has all from tobacco cards to the 30s, then up from 51 on, and he reholders like 50 to 100 cards every month.
Right.
It cracks me up. I love seeing it. It's because it's some high end stuff too. He just wants everything uniform, and if they change the holder again, he's going to go bananas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. James says here, thankfully I'm not a set collector, and I agree with you completely. No, I appreciate that, James. Like I said, and that's why I said I understood. Like I wanted to make clear I understood Korean collectors' frustration, but I also wanted to make sure I kind of covered both. The point of this format, the way we've done it, Korean cardboard is frustration, because I've seen Korean cardboard before, and he asked some great questions. But I wanted to make sure we cover. I have no problem critiquing areas where they resolve critique. We have no problem giving credit where we deserve credit because we have that luxury and that ability in this format. But at the same time, I'm also not ridiculous. Like for me, I have to look at it from the business perspective because I'm looking at a service that is not a requirement. As a collector, most of my cards will never get graded just because it would make no sense for me. At any price, it wouldn't make any sense. But there are cards that start to make more sense at different price points, all the way up and down the chain. So what happens is I have to make decisions. Even if I wanted to get encapsulated, maybe some of these cards I go, oh, I need it to be like $10 per card. Well, then I got to look around. Unfortunately, nobody offers that right now. Nobody on the marketplace offers that $10 per card. But there are a few that are pretty close. So maybe it's just strictly PC, then maybe that makes sense. I do send still in cards for PSA because there are still cards that make sense at that price point where I can still do it. And it's like, yeah, these cards, absolutely. Let's do it. Other ones, not so much.
What if I ask you this question? I said, if you look at it from, again, this is just general conversation.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If we had cards, do you think the future of PSA is cards 1989 and back or 1979 and back?
No. The numbers have already skewed so far in the opposite direction. This is a conversation that I've had with folks, and thank you for bringing it up. We've had this conversation with folks where again, PSA set registry. And again, I agree. Those are the diehards. Those are the folks. The problem is the numbers have steadily moved against them, not because of anything they've done. They've been loyal. They've done. Now this is unfortunate because unfortunately you're kind of turning your back on this group. So that's why I said, for the longest time we were like, is there some compromise? Is there some way that could be that you could have your cake and eat it too here and show them some love, but at the same time take care of it? But you just see the numbers. Record number of submissions, record number of cards through the door, and where is it? Half TCG. So at this point, you're going to make more money being loyal to Pikachu. like you basically you have that gigantic, and you just look at the dissection of it. And where's the rest of it? Every new set that comes out, there's a certain amount of cards that get submitted. And one thing that we talked about, and we'll workshop it a little bit more. I want to show, and I'm just letting you guys give a little sneak preview. I want to show you guys a breakdown of where these categories are falling, where certain cards are being submitted. That's something Brad and I literally chatted about a couple minutes before we get started. I want to pull behind the curtain that far so that you guys can have a better understanding of what's being submitted. Not to the specifics of giving away anybody's information. That's not the point. The point, though, is in general terms. Just so we can tell you, flat out, hey, out of the stuff that was submitted last month or the month before, 50% of it is TCG. Pikachu and Charizard. Boom. There you go. And this much is hockey. This much is football. This much, kind of the question that a few of you have asked before. It'll give you a better taste of exactly what's happening and why things are being structured the way they're being structured. Why the specials are being structured the way they're being structured. Because PSA is looking at the exact same data at the bigger version, but we can show you on the smaller level. It's like, hey, this is what you guys are submitting right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not like what we want. I mean, I'm part of the set registry. I got to, just like Korean Cardboard said, I've got a stack that's been up there for, I don't know, probably 500 cards that I want to get graded at some point. But I'm just kind of waiting my time, and I'm going to see what happens and see how this all unfolds. Because hopefully there could be a time, and I think there will be at some point. So we'll just see.
Yeah, I think the key is that I want to make sure we emphasize that we are sympathetic. But at this point, the best we can do is provide you. That's why I want to provide you more real data, like information. This is what it is. Take it for what it's worth. So now you at least know, and then think about it in the bigger version. If this is the information they're getting, they're like, okay, so where should we be allocating our resources and our specials? And suddenly you get an answer to your question.
Yeah, and I'm sure Nat Turner wants, like he said, he wanted to get it down to $12. There's no doubt in my mind he'd love to do that. He appreciates and knows the business and knows the collector side of it. He would love to take care of all the set collectors, but at the same time, he has to answer to the board of directors and the higher authorities that are there saying, we want to see X amount. You got this amount of money going out the door. We need the revenues to exceed these numbers. So it's all part of the business cycle.
Mm-hmm. So Peter here says, something like US 40 for something for service really adds up. Yep. And then Peter says, hold up for the title of Senior Director, Collectors Canada. I've already made my pitch to the title that I would go with.
Carolyn,
just throwing it out. Paul here. Good evening. Good evening, Paul. A new game every time Brad says, good friend of mine, smash the like button. It makes Endosora pay for double for likes. That's right. Thank you very much for the reminder as well, Hockey Hockey. So yes, absolutely hit the like button. Eric needs to pay. He's feeling a little, his legs are getting weighed down from all the cash in his pockets right now. He needs a little bit of help with that. Lighten his load a little bit. He's starting to do more. He's starting to do more of his mountain biking right now. He needs to be lighter. He needs to be able to fly. Stagger Joe here. Good evening. Getting late. Can't wait to get my submission back in the grading process and hopefully have them back soon. Absolutely. As an active member of the registry, so I want to say, Chris CM or Chrisism. I'm not sure how we would put that one, but I'll just read it this way. But thank you. Good evening. As an active member of the registry, I appreciate them offering photos on every card now. Maybe they could offer expedited times as opposed to waiting the regular customers instead of a price drop. So there is an expedited version for one of the tiers. Which one escapes me? But there is an expedited version. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's Value Plus.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and that goes up to 60. And honestly, that's a service that PSA needs to improve upon.
Yes.
Because I think it's a great idea, but the problem is they are not. Some are coming back within that time frame, but we have a lot of the Value Plus orders that are not coming back in that time frame.
Yeah.
Which causes a problem. So I know I'm sure, I shouldn't say I know, but I'm sure they are working on that because that has to be part of the whole process. If you're paying for that higher, all you're paying is for faster turnaround time, then those times have to be met. And myself and Ryan Miller, we've talked about this at PSA numerous times, and they're working on some interesting, maybe some cool innovations for that. But right now it doesn't. So I always tell people, look, It says 20 business days, but we've had orders that have run longer. So
No, I agree. Especially if you are, to your point, if you're charging extra for it, then it's doubly important that you hit that timeline. Because
Yeah.
on the normal ones right now, the timelines have been hit, so that seems to be going okay. But if you offer an expedited service, then you better make sure it hits that timeline. It has to make sure it's expedited.
yeah.
Good evening, Dave. Will PSA Canada offer clean and wipe services? I go, I'll leave that to you. I'm not touching that one.
It is part. We're looking at all angles of what we're going to release, and it will probably happen within the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay, sounds fair. Peter says, must be some concern that a Canada review service would be definitely high maintenance for folks chasing PSA 10s. Yeah. So, and this was news to me. Sometimes I learn about this stuff as we go on, the same as you folks. But it is, if you offer like a review, you are taking on a certain amount of risk. You're taking on a certain amount of responsibility. To Brad's point, he said he said the magic word. If there's anything involving guarantees, that creates a different element to it, because then it means you are being very stringent on it. Now, if that's the case, and this is just me talking from a normal thing from these type of review things, then that means you're probably going to be extra strict. You're probably going to err on the side of going lower. Like if somebody says, "Oh, I only want 9s and 10s," and it's like a borderline, I would reject it if I was doing the review, because, well, if you're going to put yourself on the line and risk it, like I don't want borderline cases in that case if that's your minimum.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to risk that conversation.
I do think it's funny when you look, though. Everyone is so concerned with wiping down your cards. Like when people buy cards now, I get it. Obviously, if a kid rips open a pack, but all the kids that we see open them up now are better with their cards than most of the adults.
I would say the clean is more than the wipe, because look, let's be 100% transparent. You know what happens before I send a card over, Brad? Like microfiber cloth. You literally, especially like on a chromium card, and a lot of them, you take fingerprints off and whatever. And the thing is, day to day, most people do that now. Microfiber cloths, this is not something that is seen as a concern for most people. They're like, a chromium card, wipe off your fingerprints. Yes, by all means, do that. Now, cleaning, when you're introducing, chemical agents or anything like that, we're starting to enter into that kind of like, that's a little bit more of a gray, murky area that we get into. Different conversation. But I don't think the microfiber cloths, I don't think anybody's fighting too much on that one. I think that's kind of to be expected at this stage. Luke, I know it's been a little bit since we had a conversation, but any thought on that piece? Any concerns on... I'm making a distinction between cleaning and wiping.
No, you're right about that. I mean, cleaning and wiping, I don't know. When people ask me that, I say it's the same thing. Like, you wipe your cards or whatever, but I mean, no cards really need to be wiped that's like older paper cards. You can't... I mean, I had some kids in Montreal came in and they asked me if, should we be wiping all cards? I said, well, did you eat KFC before you open the cards? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's when you have to wipe it down if you have like grease stains on there. But I mean, other than that, those older cards don't necessarily need it, right? It's the new cards that have the chromium that you have to do wipe and just like doesn't have to be. I don't know. It doesn't have to be like all like hardcore.
I wouldn't spend more than a couple of seconds on it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. But I think that's within the realm of reason, because literally, like I said, I grabbed the microfiber cloth and I gave him a quick once over just before I put them in the holder, and then I hand it off that way, and then there you go. And generally speaking, that's worked well for me. I've been able to get my fair share of 10s over time, so it's like. But again, I don't think that's frowned upon. I don't think I don't think that's very controversial. It's where you get into cleaning. What do you define as cleaning? What do you consider to be cleaning? That's where then you can get into kind of more of a debate or conversation with a lot of folks. So let me scroll here. This one. I can see the review going badly. Someone can freak out if they don't get a 10 after being charged a grading fee. Well, after being charged a grading fee, you're talking about a review fee. Now, this may be something that you guys are going to work out. I would, even in a review, I would never guarantee somebody a 10, because that's asking a lot. I would be like within a certain boundary, like, oh, you want like a 9 and above? That would make sense to me.
Absolutely. And that's what we're looking at. We're just doing the data to figure out the price point. At the end of the day, you're going to
I'm not promising anybody a 10.
Yeah.
There's zero guarantees in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think Peter's comment next is a very good comment.
Yes. I'll read it real quick here. So I really like grading for authentication, alteration, documentation, which I agree. That's definitely one of the more important categories for a lot of it. The scoring, though, I cannot tell the difference between a 9 and 10. A lot of people can't. Still want a 10 toe. So real quick, can I give a quick story? And Brad, you were around for this one.
Yeah.
So when we did the CSC show, even though, like I said, the CSC show, like I poked some fun at them earlier, but again, I appreciated the show and I wanted to support it and I enjoyed it and it was fun for the reasons that we talked about last week.
Mhm.
But one of the dealers had, and this is somebody who would have clearly done a lot of grading. They had, I'll just describe the booth and everything. So basically, they had their table and they had a bunch of cards out on it, including graded cards. So they had their PSA cards laid out, and what they did is it was a thing where if you were interested, you could negotiate the deal, whatever. They had the cards on there with different price points and price tags on it. And what I found out, I didn't realize this was the case until I made a deal on one of the cards. So what happened is I made a deal on the card. We came to a price, so we agreed. Great, and I bought it was a Jake Ottinger and a PSA 9. So fine, it was the young gun. So I went and we came to a price, and he said, "All right." And then he grabbed behind him a box, and in the box he had a bunch of Jake Ottinger young gun PSA 9s. So he had a whole stack of them. So I was like, "All right, how many did you submit?" Jeez. So anyway, so he gave me one of the cards, and I took it. And I was walking away. I made another deal and everything. And then afterwards, I took a look at it. It's already graded. It's already encapsulated, and everything's fine. But I went to go take a look at it. And this is, again, it's the old adage, right? The old cliche. Buy the card, not the grade. So it was graded. Now, within the strictest definition of of a PSA 9, you could probably get away with it. But this would be something that I would qualify as a super borderline case. I showed it to Brad. I go, in my opinion, in Carlos' grading service opinion, just mine alone, that's not a 9. I looked at it and go, in my assessment, that is very generous 9. It's a 9 on a very good day where somebody got a big razor bonus, and they're in a great mood, and it's sunshine and rainbows and puppy dogs and everything. And I was like, no, in Carlos's grumpy grading, that ain't getting a 9. Mm-hmm. So I looked at it and go, not going to work for me. But because it had already been graded, already been assessed, I sold it to somebody, took gigantic big old pictures. I go, hey, here you go, guys, have at it. Well, guess what? I sold it for what I paid for it. It was liquid. I was able to move it.
I think that card, you know what? It's, if you still had that, Carlos, that'd be fun to send back in for review, because honestly, I think that one slipped through the cracks, yep. And it'd be interesting to see. I think PSA would think the same thing. Yep. So part of the guarantee that PSA has, I think that card would have qualified, and it would have been taken out of the system and changed to the proper grade.
Yeah. Now the thing though is, the reason I gave that story is because, so in that review example, so let's say I hand you guys that raw card exactly as it was. If I'm the one doing the review, and you tell me it needs to be a 9+, even though in the end it ended up in a 9 holder, my answer would have been no. I would have said no. I don't think so. Like, maybe on a good day, maybe if everything falls into place, but you are so borderline here in my assessment, it's an 8. Or whatever the case may be, and that's the key. But guaranteeing a 10 though, you're asking that'd be asking a lot, because it's like, even if the card had been way better, it's like I would be comfortable guaranteeing a 10 on anything.
Yeah, you really can't, unless you, again, I mean, price point means everything. Yeah. How much you're going to pay for this review to guarantee a 10? $250 a card, and or you know what I mean. There's always that. It's just a simple balance back and forth. But to Peter's comment, I wanted to add in there.
Yeah.
From my standpoint on the end, I can't tell the difference between a 9 visually without going under and really underneath the loop, going over it. Visually, when I look at 9s and 10s, I can't tell. I can tell a 7 or an 8 on a modern card. There's usually a visible flaw with that. But a 9 or 10, I can't. So I personally am a promoter of PSA 9s. I think PSA 9s on modern cards are undervalued, and I think PSA 10s are overvalued, and I think collectors should spend a little more time. If you are a collector, then don't get caught up necessarily. Invest in PSA 9s, because they're great. They're mint cards. They're great cards.
He invoked the hashtag invest, Luke. He invoked the hashtag invest.
Did I say invest?
You did. You did say invest.
Okay, I did. I didn't mean to say that. But I just look at it silly. Would I sooner have one PSA 10 Sidney Crosby young gun rookie, or would I sooner have 3 9s? I'd sooner have 3 PSA 9s than that 110 on a modern card. No, on vintage, completely different story. I'm not talking about that. On a modern card, though, I would sooner have, when you get up to those ratios of, like, especially 3 or 4 to 1, give me the 3 or 4 any day on any modern card.
Luke, would you concur with that assessment?
I don't know. For my own PC, whatever, I'd rather have a 10.
Sure.
I mean, nines, yes, definitely for sure. It's it's cheaper. It's your the market. If you're paying for PSA 10 Crosby X amount, you probably get 3 of them for PSA nines or whatever. Yeah, and then what I do is I probably crack them out and try to get 10s.
Sure.
You
All right,
know,
but
so-
let me ask you a question.
Why would you sooner, if you said that though, Luke, then this is my question to you is why would you sooner have the PSA 10 then? Take your 3 nines, maybe you get 2 10s if you crack them out. You know what I mean? Like,
because if I have a 10 and then I have those 3 nines, and if I get 2 10s out of those nines, I've now tripled my money.
so back to what you originally said though, you would sooner have a PSA 10 or 3 PSA 9s. I think you're saying you'd sooner have 3 PSA 9s.
You could take a chance. So you could use the eye appeal thing. You could use your eyes and potentially scout out nines that are crack out candidates. So you might actually have a better deal in your hands if you took the 3 nines and picked 3 choice nines.
But I think the IPL works really well with older vintage cards, definitely for sure. But modern cards, I mean, I think it's just a number. It's the number on the card. It's gambling to try to get that better number.
I agree. I agree with that.
That's how I look at it.
So there's a slightly different angle I wanted to take, and you, Brad, since you touched on it, you kind of brought it into the category that was kind of fun for me. Even with modern, I just gave a scenario example a moment ago. When I bought that 9 at that card show, the price I negotiated was basically the going rate of the raw. I effectively paid the raw price on that card. So the person who bought it from me bought it basically for raw price. I bought it for raw price. Once I saw that it had a defect I wasn't satisfied with, I basically sold it just to get my costs back, with my fees and whatever. But they effectively paid right around the raw price. So in the end, they ended up where they ended up. But I was able to look at the card and assess it. I took the big old pictures and everything so they could zoom in and scan it, so they had the same luxury that I had. But here's the important key. Talking about that 10. The thing is, we know, and again, the point of this show is to be as honest as possible. That's been the theme of the night. Like brutal honesty at the expense of everything. There's plenty of 10s that don't belong in 10 holders. And there's 9s that belong in 10 holders, but they're not. And vice versa, and back and forth all the way. But your question was about a 10. Well, what if the 10, Luke, you look at it, it's not a 10. It's in a 10 holder. It's not a 10. So would I rather look at these 3 9s and go, actually, 2 of these could probably be in a 10 holder? Because I can clearly tell that they're clean. They look good. But then I look at this 10, it's like, nope. I can see a defect that would definitely bring it down from a 10. It shouldn't be. This person got lucky. But it says 10 on the holder. So do you still want the 10 or do you want the 9s that are clean? You're muted, Luke. Your silence speaks volumes. You're still muted, Luke. I didn't mute you. Yeah, I didn't mute you.
Sorry, my dog was whining. So
all right.
I said you say that it's it's. I can't remember my train of thought.
So but I'm using this example because on the young guns, sometimes you've got the edges that can chip and things like that. Like there's certain defects that you can actually see pretty clearly on those cards. I've seen 9s that definitely have them. I've seen 10s that definitely have them. And I've seen 9s that are clean. And the centering is right. And you can do those comparisons. Again, your point is that it's very subtle. I agree. But you can find very clean 9s that on a good day could be 10s. And you can find 10s that are like, if I crack this out, it's probably not getting a 10 again. You can just look at it and go like, it got through this time. I guarantee you we try this 100 times. It's getting turned back a 9, 89 times out of 100. Mm-hmm. I would rather have the 9 that looks clean and at least gives me a shot and I'm paying 9 price. And maybe I get lucky. Maybe I don't. Maybe I get back a 9. But a 10, where very clearly I can tell, it's like this was a borderline case on your best day and you know it wouldn't work if you cracked it out again. And you're paying 10 price. Remember, you're paying a 10 premium price. Yeah. So it's like, I don't know if I want that 10.
I had a guy say to me today, he wants to buy a PSA 7 79 O-Pee-Chee Gretzky rookie. And he goes, I'll pay $5,000 for one that was graded with the number that starts 4 or less on the PSA cert. Mm-hmm. And I'll pay $8,000 for any PSA 7 that is graded. Yeah, he said from 5s and back, from 6s and above, which means more or less over the last 2 or 3 years. So this is starting to play out in the field that people, it's not just reholder and like people say, oh, I want one with a new label. They're going by the PSA cert number, and they're looking at that and they're paying a premium for vintage cards that are have been graded in the last 2 or 3 years. It's the first time someone's actually come out and actually said that to me. So there's a standing offer on that, right, which is very interesting. I never thought. And then he explained it and he talked to me more about it. And it did make sense. And it wasn't about changing standards, that PSA grades harder. His analogy when he put it to me was we might even be able to get him on as a guest. I'd like to do that because the way that he broke it down, it all made sense. And it wasn't talking, not changing grading standards, not getting harder, not getting easier. Everything he said just really clicked in and made sense. We're going to try to line that up. We'll talk to you about that later. But
all right,
it was very good. It was interesting.
I'll read a couple of these comments here. But the reason I wanted to bring up that conversation is because that's the ancient debate. But it's a 10. It's like, that's what the label says. But is it? Look at the card underneath the whole label, and sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's sometimes, you know what? I can't see anything wrong with it. Yeah, fine, makes sense. Other times, actually, I can see a couple of things wrong with it that are really apparent to, even at arm's length. It's like, you got away with one on that one. So I don't know about paying full price on that one. So James said here, I don't pay for 10s graded cards when buying. 10s I got myself. I buy 9s. Totally fair. What's the point of Gen Mint if the crack and resubmit game is going live and well? You're assuming it's fully activated and you're assuming it's getting fully used. That's a lot of assumptions. And you know what they say about assuming. Luke, don't make me tell him what it says about assuming. He should know by now. I love how people automatically, I get the point. But it's like, oh, they bought Gen Mint, so that'll fix everything. They'll activate it tomorrow. Maybe not. Honestly, probably not. Have you worked in technology? I have. Just so we're clear, I worked in the banking industry for the better part of the last decade. They have billions and billions of dollars. Do you know how far behind they are in technology inside of the offices, even in the areas that are under technology? They have billions of dollars. You'd think they'd have figured out about a VoIP phone earlier than 2015, even though they've been around for decades. Nope. Hey guys, we can connect our phones to the laptops now. Guys, that's been around for 20 years. This ain't new technology, but it's new to us. That's great. So anyway, bottom line is when it comes to Gen Mint or any of those tech, yes, you buy the technology and hopefully you can incorporate I would love for it to be incorporated on day one, used on every card, and we're good to go. Well, what you're seeing is the baby steps. Next step is take a picture of every card. What are you starting to see now? All right, we're taking a picture of every card. Cool. Where are those pictures going? Well, because when you scan it now, you can pull it up on the app. That means it's sitting on a database. That means they're building a database of all these images of cards. Does that guarantee that the Gen Mint thing gets turned on and now we have the fingerprint of every card? No. But is it a step in the direction of being able to potentially do that? Yes. You need the database. Otherwise, how do you have the fingerprints, right? All of these things are part of the steps. Again, I don't have the roadmap in front of me, but even from the outside, I can tell you got to have the database before you can even use that technology, even assuming it's ready to go. Even assuming it's ready for Prime. And again, I'm assuming. Dave here says, Brutal Honesty says there are hundreds of thousands of authentics that have a number grade. Yes, Dave, that is true. There's also hundreds of thousands of altered cards sitting ungraded in longtime collectors' holdings. Scandalous. CKCK says, Brad, how's the market these days for 50s Parker's hockey?
Strong. Very strong.
Any particular years you're seeing any demand for?
I mean, the usual ones. 51s are always super strong sellers. 57. All Parker's cards sell great. The ones in the 60s are a little bit more common. 60, 61, 62, 61, 62, 62, 63. You do see a little bit more. 63, 64. People, I don't really like 63, 64, but people love the design with the flag in the background.
I was going to say, somewhere in the distance, Eric is crying.
Yeah.
You guys got to hit the like button to make Eric feel better.
It's not my favorite one, that's for sure.
But there's some in the 50s that I really don't like either. But I would say a lot of them are. But here's the interesting thing. I still think, and this is not my usual area for it, but I have collected a fair bit of the 50s Parker's hockey. I just think a lot of them price-wise really haven't caught up to a lot of the other 50s vintage. Like a lot of those 50 Parker's hockey, there's a lot of Hall of Famers in there, and you can get a lot of the Gordies pretty cheap. I'm not talking about his rookie, but like some of the other ones, you can still get relatively cheap and decent condition. Like you can get Hall of Famers in decent condition. Your Terry Sawchucks and some of these other guys. There's some good stuff in there, man. So I don't know. That's just my take. I have a junk wax cards. Yep, 51, 52. Is that the Terry Sawchuk?
Yeah, it's a PSA 8 Sawchuck
Gotcha.
with PWCC Superior.
Bring it all pieces. By the way, we got to get rid of that stupid baggie. I hate that baggie.
Yeah, I know.
Little baggie around it. It's not cool.
So my favorite sets.
All right, so hold on here. I'll drop the comment here. Go ahead.
So the 3 sets in hockey. My favorite set here is, I think this is my favorite set. 65 tops.
All right.
That's a Phil Esposito PSA 9. I've had that for a while. I don't think there's too many. And then I go into 66. There's a PSA 10 Jim Nielsen, which is pretty cool. That set and the tall boys. So I go 64s. I go the 64 tall boys, 65 tops, 66 is my next favorite.
I actually like the tall boys, even though some of the pictures are really awkward.
Yeah,
they're hilariously awkward, but I kind of enjoy them. Luke, you know those ones with the. How do you feel about the tall boys? I like their awkwardness.
Yes. So like, there's my tall boy set, but we talked to Korean Cardboard. Like, I'm waiting to grade these.
Yep.
I'm in no rush, but this will finish off my set so I can have it on the registry. My set's complete. All 3 of those are complete now, but there's some cool stuff.
No, fair enough. Real quick, I'll read a couple of these comments and get caught up. Thank you all for the comments, everybody. Some really good stuff here in the chat. Hockey Greg says, I have junk wax cards that PSA 10s that look like a 10s to me. Absolutely. Look, like I said, I had some fun with Dave because Dave and I have a lot of fun having conversations on the Friday show as well. And here's the thing. Dave has a lot of great background, a lot of the different graders in the hobby, and a lot of stuff. And I have never shied away from the fact that there is a lot of stuff that has gone into holders that probably doesn't deserve to be in holders. And that's true for all the graders. That is true for all the situations. So he goes here, hundreds of thousands of authentics that I've never graded. I agree. But the fact is, a lot of the folks that complain the most about grading and say, well, you can't have them, you shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. I have all my cards on grade. I go, can I go over there and take a look at your cards? Because I want to see how many of them are trimmed or altered. Because I'm going to find some. I can almost, sight unseen, I'm going to find some. I guarantee it. The more confident you are, the more confident I am, I'm going to find them. Yeah. What do you got there, big old pile? Min size requirement?
This is min size, altered, trimmed, 100%. Recolored.
100%.
I just, whenever I get one, I just keep it in that pile. And yeah, I've got every type of card. I actually mentioned this to a friend that works at Collectors, and they were doing some research. I said, I can send you a pretty cool pile if you want to train some people that can see from min size to recolored to altered to trimmed. You name it. I've submitted miscuts. I've submitted them at some point, not knowing, right?
Yeah.
And there's a.
And by the way, when it comes to min size, sometimes there's an argument to be made, like, hey, there is some variation in there. Maybe you guys are being a little too strict on it. They're trying to err on the side of being too cautious, but we'll have to see. Like, it's because it's one of those things. There are tolerances built in, so I'll have to see. Yeah. So, question here: how do you date a serial number? It used to be sequential. I don't know if it's still. I think, is it random now or is it still sequential?
No, it's still sequential. So when you look at it, go with the first number. So right now they're grading with 7. It starts with 7. So I don't know if it's 7 million. I forget how many numbers are after it. So the first graded card that they did, the Onus Wagner, is number 000001.
Yeah. So
now they're up to 7. Yeah, it goes 7.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
Yep. That's why they have billings in reference to the bank and the lack of going to technology. They bought Gentleman at least 2 years ago. They should get on it. I wouldn't expect it too much. Maybe 5 years from now. I'm being serious. Like, when they bought it, I didn't expect to see any great, crazy implementation for it. I can almost guarantee that. And it didn't matter what technology they bought. And tech stuff is bought and obsolete before implementation all the time. Yeah. It was a good idea at the time. 5 years later, yes. Certain numbers useful to consider grading standards at the time. Newer serial numbers may look nicer in some grades than older cert. Yeah, there have been some variations in the application of the grading standards. So that is true. Bobby says, tall boys, love them or hate them. That is true.
Very true.
So Mike here says, question on the baggie. Why do some get the baggie and others get the smoke glass gasket? I love this question. I don't know the answer. I really don't.
Question on the baggie. Why do some get the baggie?
Yeah, it's inconsistent. Like, not that you won't see it all the time. I've seen ones where I've submitted cards where I'll get the baggie, and other times I will not. And why, okay, so I have no idea.
Yeah, so if you submit at Express or above, you automatically get the baggie. But I was doing orders today with Express coming back and regular.
Yeah.
And some regular I got, and some regular were in the bags, and some regulars weren't in the bags. Same order, so I can't answer that.
Okay, so just so we're clear, when I'm talking about the baggie, I'm talking about that thing inside the holder.
Yeah,
I'm talking
that's
about
what
like,
made
so
me.
you know when you're showing
all
those
right.
cards? So you know how
Sorry.
you've got like that weird, so you've got frosted glass, and then you've got the ones that looks like a little plastic baggie inside. That's what I'm talking about.
Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, so that one, I don't know the rhyme or reason for it. Like, I genuinely have no idea. I've seen both. And I've seen ones in similar order submissions at the time, and I have no idea why. No clue.
Yeah, I'll read this today. So I had a customer that had bought an SP Authentic Cal McCarr Future Watch rookie.
Sure.
PSA 9. He said he bought it from somebody and it moved around in the case and you could feel it shaking side to side, which does happen sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I submitted a request for him. I said, no problem, we'll take it. I'll send it back for you. So I put the request in and here's the response because this is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I described it, card moving around too much inside the slab.
Mm-hmm.
So then Jasmine at PSA got back to me and here's her response. I've spoken to the sealing team in regards to cert number X. They confirmed that the card is encapsulated in the appropriately sized holder. It is normal and ideal for there to be some degree of movement. Otherwise, it'd be too tight and possibly cause damage to the card. Please know that our continuous improvement and quality assurance teams are aware of these types of concerns, and PSA is constantly striving to improve the services and product it offers, which does make sense. Sometimes you see that movement more so than others on certain cards.
Well, the thing is, if you got
it.
size variation, you're going to see more movement anyway.
Yeah.
The inserts should be pretty close most of the time, and that's where you get a little bit of question on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to be clear, Mike, I've been trying to figure that one out myself, and I'm not sure what the specific rhyme or reason is. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
So Dave here. So Luke, we're gonna play into this one here. So Dave says you'll be looking very long and hard in this basement to find a trimmed card. I may have missed one or two over the years, but there won't be a stack. Luke, I need a distraction. I'll be right over, Dave. Dave, all of them are trimmed. Every last one. What the hell? I always love the confidence. I'll fix it. Don't worry. I'll make sure they're all trimmed. Don't worry. I'll make the edges nice and clean for you.
If you're actively buying sets and cards, then you are going to have there's altered cards in.
Yeah.
Like it happens continuously. Like Len's probably one of the biggest vintage buyers in Canada who's been doing this for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's lots of times he'll measure up cards and be like, I didn't think it was trim. He'll take it home, he'll look at it, and it is trim.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I've joked before. Like I bought from vintage dealers that have been doing business a long time, and they've taken in a lot of cards, a lot of collections, and most of the cards they've submitted in been fine. And then sometimes I'll get a couple back, and then I'll look at them again and go, yeah, okay, I kind of see it. And it depends if I have the time to scan them fully and properly. Like I joke with Dave because like if you scrutinize every card closely enough, you should be able to catch most of the stuff. About trimming, a lot of times, as long as it's sized properly, you're probably all right. And you can tell sometimes on the edges. The question is, are you feeling the edges of every single one of the cards to make sure? Because as long as the size is close enough, you'll probably be okay. Truthfully, though, there could be cards that are trimmed that started off a little bit big and they got trimmed to the correct size, and they're still trimmed, but they're the correct size. So if somebody's just looking at the sizing, you're not going to get hit for it. But actually, if somebody really looked at it, actually it was trimmed. Mm-hmm. But it's just the correct size. So you go. The certain number space seems to be running out too. Gone from the 4s to the 7s in like 3 years. Will PSA add another digit? They may have to. If they get through enough of them, if they don't want to duplicate. I already mentioned the issue right now with PSA and PSA DNA having databases with similar numbers. It's creating a bit of an issue already. I'd reckon to say I have better luck with my graded cards, all about graded than my ungraded cards. I already told you, Dave, I'll fix this. We'll get to 100% trimmed in all the ungraded. It's like, Luke, brace the distraction. You got any leftover fireworks from the holiday? Sold a box in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Ungraded cards that show the size variations that exist. Yes, absolutely. 100%. I love the sub I just got back. Seeing 10s of the same card sequential is cool. Nice. Bobby says, I hope the baggies don't go the way of Department of Grocery Stores. Then that's what we'll do. Nice. I agree with Peter. There are recent ones that are simply great cards. Yes, absolutely. You get some good high eye appeal ones. You can find them. There's some quality out there. I got some of the new size PSA inner brackets on check card. Was a 2.5 by 3.5 card, but the inner size was a bit larger than normal. Was not a fan, but I guess they felt like the card was a bit oversized. Gotcha. All right, here you go. I got the package today. Thanks, Luke. Good stuff. So the saga has ended on that piece. That's good to hear. But yeah, No, the reality is, like I said, I'll have some fun, and Dave's been collecting a lot of vintage a very long time, so he's obviously very well versed in it. And people who have been dealing in it a long time will do very well. But it's one of those things like you can stare at it unless you're telling me you're staring at every single card for long enough. We'll see. But the problem is, then, in order to disprove you, we're going to spend more time on each card than on average is going to get looked at. Because even when you submit it in, they're not spending that much time staring at it. More than average, but like in ultra modern, most people aren't really paying that kind of scrutiny to it. That's why so many of those cards get submitted and graded and get put through. On the vintage and stuff, there's enough stuff going on that you really have to know what you're looking for and how to check. And that's where some of those nuances kick in. And as Dave said in his comment here, there are size variations in the legitimate cards that would have come out of the pack back then. And that's legitimate. And that's what should be, because there was inconsistency in the manufacturing and there are tolerances there. And every issue is a little bit different. That's why some of them are going to have some of that stuff. One way is a little bit different than the other. Good stuff. All right. So I think that's a pretty good spot. We can start winding her down. If you guys have any other questions or comments on any of that, we can touch on it. I'm trying to remember. Did we forget anything else? We talked about the show already a little bit. We talked about some of the stuff we're planning is coming up, so we got that. Anything else major coming down here the pipeline? Any major shows or anything? I think we got a little bit of a breather right now.
Yeah, no, we do. I think as we first mentioned, though, it's nice by the end of this week, after the weekend for sure, everything will be off to Santa Ana. And by the end of next week, by the end of next week, saying Friday of next week, anybody that's looking for a sub number that wants it, it will be available.
Good. Nice. Good stuff. So thank you all, as always, for participating. Really good chat. We've had some good stuff here in the conversations, and thank you all for joining in. Thank you for those of you who hit the like button. And we've gotten a couple more subscribers and some good comments in the last couple of videos. So if you do have any thoughts or anything on the replay, then we'll definitely have to look at that. So if you got suggestions or thoughts, now that you know we're really giving some thought to these different little categories that we can touch on, we would love to have suggestions. Like we gave you that example earlier tonight. If you have stuff like that, I'd love to hear about it, because now we can start coming up with different ways that we can present it. Love to share different sets and different series and different things. Or if you just want to see Luke open tins of the cup. I
can show you I got 2 recent pickups I can show you guys. Hold on a second.
All right, go for it.
I like it.
All right, Dave says, seems to be a lull in the hobby. No big auctions currently for the first time in a long time. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a breather on that too. That's true. I agree with that.
I got this back today too before Luke goes, which is pretty cool.
Go.
Oh, you got it back. What did he come back at?
An 8. So yeah,
That's pretty good.
Pop 2, and there's one higher. I've had this for I'm going to say 10 years raw, and I was so happy to finally just get it slapped. So.
Have a good night, Mike.
That's awesome. I got the card.
Okay, hold on. I need a little backstory. So we got an Alex Manoah autograph. Okay, now obviously, other than the obvious, Alex Manoah. Luke, what is the specific context? Why this Alex Manoah? What's the deal with this card?
I bought it because I got $50 off on eBay.
Fantastic.
But this is my pickup. I don't know if you guys can see.
Oh, you got the Mickey Mouse there? Okay. Yeah. 91
From 1991. I think I pulled this and I've graded it myself.
Oh, it's a double-sided hologram. All right.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. So do I.
Impel was making a lot of stuff in the early 90s. They had a lot of stuff in the early 90s.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this should have got a better grade, but I'm happy with the 7.
The Alex Manoah card, I appreciate it. I appreciate it for what it plays. So how's that Alex Manoah thing going, Brad?
You know what? You're just not being very nice now.
Brad, listen, I am willing. Being a friend of yours, I am willing to help bail you out. I got $150. No, I mean literally $150 for any one of those Manoah cards that you want. Like, I'll get you out of it while you're still not completely underwater on it. It's like that's like cash money. Direct transfer to your account, no problem.
I got this back today too.
Okay, why do you have an Anthony Edwards in like a 6?
Well, because I thought it would be a beautiful PSA 10, and I was going to send it in. So we chalked that up in the loss department. So it happens.
So what you're saying is, when it comes to this review service, you are not going to be the one doing the reviewing.
No, I do not do. I will not do the reviews. Not a chance.
I was going to say, you're going to scare them all away, Brad.
Happy to do it for vintage, but this one, honestly, I'm not sure. There has to be something. So Rod did look at this one for me.
Okay.
So I'm. He's probably going to listen tomorrow, but I am definitely going to make fun of him over the PSA 6 Anthony Edwards. But he was 95% 9s and 10s on everything else.
All right.
I can't. You're going to have him.
I feel like actually what I would like is I'd like a postmortem. I'd like a postmortem here because I feel like usually if it's some random thing like that, there's like a back crease or something. Like usually it's something. Yeah, usually there's something like that. That oftentimes, like if it's like something that you don't expect like that on a modern card, it's like a weird back crease or something. So James here enjoyed that. The Alex Manoah there. Didn't you buy another Mickey Mouse? Question mark.
I did.
Mickey Mouse greater than Alex Manoah. Listen,
John,
we can't disagree right now.
That's just wrong, John. That's terrible.
Alex Manoah has some work to do. Listen, I cannot change it right now. I need to see more from Alex Manoah before I'm willing to forget. Like I said, Brad, $150. I got you, bud. I got you. I got you.
Nate Pearson's looking better than Manoah is right now.
So can we all agree? Let's hashtag divest pitching prospects. Just stay away.
It's terrible. It's a terrible decision, and we fall for it hook, line, and sinker.
James says he'll come around. I hope. I'm with you, Brad. There you go. James is trying to offer some support. He's offering some moral support.
I appreciate that.
Good stuff. So there was one more thing, actually. Let's real quick, because I don't think when we did the last show, the PWCC news hadn't dropped yet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, right here at the end, just get some general thoughts. I'd like to get that because I didn't get a chance to chat with you guys, with Luke or with you, Brad, on Friday. So let's touch on it really brief. PWCC purchased by Fanatics, expanding their portfolio, really high level. Obviously, Fanatics is trying to move to do the end-to-end. They want all the pieces. So PWCC, they get the marketplace and they get the vault, obviously, and everything they're in. A lot of people have a lot of issues with the PWCC brand in that, but that isn't going to change. That's part of the deal. However, having the vault, that's big for their end-to-end integration. Having a marketplace, that's part of their end-to-end integration. And at the same time, it fills one more piece of the the Infinity Stones that the Fanatics is doing. But collectors on the other side of it is doing their own thing. They got their marketplace. They've got that. Obviously, the missing piece right now is a grader, third-party grader. That's a speculation piece. But just for the PWCC piece. First, you, Luke. How do you feel about that acquisition? How does it fit in the space? Make sense to you? What do you think?
I think it makes sense for me. I think it makes sense for Fanatics to do that, right? So,
yep.
I mean, they're I don't know if they're trying to like globally take it over or whatever things like that, but I mean, it's definitely things that are in place for them to become much larger than what they are right now, right? So,
yep. If it is very much just in general terms, and this is something we'll get a chance to observe more as it comes in, but like it's an easy prediction to make. It's a hobby-wide arms race right now. You got collectors on one side building their various, you can do the checklist, right? The checklist of, hobby dominance. The bingo game is being played right now by both of these. Third-party creator, collectors, check. Platform, golden, check. Golden/collectors vault, check. Data tool, card ladder, check. We do all these little ones. Well, on the other side, what is Fanatics going? Well, they have a card manufacturer, check. Platform now, check. Vaulting, check. So you're seeing there's a couple missing on one side that the other one has, and the other one has those ones that are missing, but each one of them is starting to stack up the lineup on both sides of that bingo card. Brad, thoughts?
Yeah, I like how you just said that too. And I just feel like either side shouldn't check you have your core main business. Personally, I don't think Fanatics should get into the grading side of things. I think if they're a manufacturer.
With that said, though, they will. Like easy prediction for me, they will. I don't know how, and I don't know which. I have my leading candidates, which I've talked about on Friday. But look, they will. I can almost guarantee. Like Michael Rubin's sitting there, like, which one of y'all?
Yeah, I don't think. I honestly, again, could be completely wrong on it.
I will bet you $150 Alex Manoah on it.
It's just like I don't think. Yeah, there you go. I don't think collectors should venture into the manufacturing side of things. I think that those are the two keys, and then everything else, yeah, absolutely. To fight, you want to check the boxes. But I'm very interested to hear through all the rumor mills that I would love to know what happened in the last week leading up till this was announced.
Mhm.
I'd like to know who was at the table. I'd like to go what the negotiations looked like. Was Collectors at the table? Well, we know Fanatics was at the table. Was Alt at the table? Who was all at the table, and how did this all transpire to have it? Was it actually was PWC at the like within the 24-hour of going bankrupt? Like I've heard a lot of those scenarios. Like it was happening next week if they didn't.
Yeah,
Get
I
the
believe
license.
that. I don't think it was literally the 11th hour, but I do think they knew that they were in trouble in short order to make the payments that were going to be required to take care of their debt obligations. That's the way I would present it. I think they understood that we're just about out of time. We need to make a deal to get out from under this. Our only hope is get somebody to come in, and as part of the deal, basically make it go away.
Yeah. And did they buy how much did besides the platform at PWCC and per se the infrastructure and what else was bought? How much of the deal was inventory? How much inventory does PWCC actually own? All these details, which I'm sure now, I mean, it's two private companies that did a deal, we'll never really know.
Yeah.
But my ear is to the ground. I want to know. That intrigues me so much because as I've been a huge PWCC's platform is the easiest to navigate, and the technology and all the things extremely. They invested a lot of time and money over the years to get where they were. And did Fanatics go in and pay pennies on the dollar? Somehow I'd like to find out.
I feel like it would be along the lines of they probably got a very good deal because part of that deal was if you want us to make this debt go away and not just let you go bankrupt and buy you in bankruptcy, then you're going to take a very generous deal on our part because we're paying this debt off, right? So that's going to cost us money. Therefore, you're going to have to be a lot more generous with this final price, and it's going to be a fraction of what it would have been a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So
but it is to see all that stuff. It's going to be interesting how it all unfolds and how many cards did Fanatics buy with that? Are you going to see a tremendous amount of cards come in a buyback product that's going to be released by Fanatics? You know, did they buy? Who knows? Maybe they bought 100,000, 200,000 cards, like physical cards from PWCC. We don't know those answers.
Well, now that at least they have a platform to sell it.
It'd be a pretty incredible buyback product.
Well, one thing that I saw it in a couple of different places. I heard it in a podcast. I heard it mentioned in another one. I want to say Sports Card Dad did it in a live stream. Somebody mentioned it, and I had it in my comment section when I did the video on it. Somebody was like, "Oh, do you think that they would want to negotiate to get back on the eBay platform?" I go, "So you think Fanatics spent all this money to become a consignor with eBay? They bought a platform to become a consignor with eBay? Like I try to be very polite about it, but I say like, why? That's like you don't need PWCC for that. You could literally just start off with a clean state and do a deal to be like, hey, can we sell stuff on eBay? Sure, you can. You didn't need a middleman for that. No, you buy a platform. You want to use the platform that they got. You want the vault. You want everything that's not nailed down, basically. So you're buying it lock, stock, and barrel. You want control because Fanatics, if nothing else, wants control. They're willing to do deals with people, but they actually want very favorable terms on everything they're doing.
Yeah, and also, and you know what, and they want to protect they made a lot of investments in this space, and they want to protect that. So if PWCC went out of business, and a lot of these cards that have been hitting the market, if there was that huge influx to hit the market, that would be very, very bad for the high end hobby. You know, it's not going to make a difference for us collectors at heart, but for that high end market, that would be.
Are you saying my 1991 Donruss Eddie Murrays are safe?
They're safe. You're good. Hey, my buddy just sent me a picture. You know, I gave him a card for free, and he just sold it on eBay. He's pretty proud. A 1990 O-Pee-Chee PSA 8 Martin Jelena. He got $3.99. Sold.
Did he sell it to Martin Jelena?
I don't know.
I have questions. Paul here says the entire Disney cast is better than Manoa. Viciousness. So real quick, I want to read a couple of these comments here because there's a couple of good ones here. So Dave says if they clean house, and I know Dave's got some subsequent comments, so I'm getting to them. Just bear with me a second. James says has huge potential. Fanatics versus Upper Deck, Leaf, and President's Choice is our future. We can only hope. Okay, so the one part of so here's a couple of comments from Dave here. One part of the acquisition is the potential legal exposure for a company planning on going public. Adding fraud to your company can be a huge negative. Now, I want to actually touch on this because this is obviously the big thing. But the thing is, PWCC, the various trimming, alteration scandal, a lot of the infamous parts of PWCC have been in play forever. And obviously, the big thing a couple of years ago now was the falling out with them in eBay, was when they got knocked off the eBay platform. And obviously, there's a lot of reasons people throw out, and the big one, eBay alluded to it being, shilling on the platform, right? Okay. And I go, but how many consigners does eBay have that have been accused of shill bidding for longer that are still on the platform, that are still making them a lot of money? And that's why I say, like, eBay, I'll take it with a grain of salt that you're saying is just because of shill bidding and not that plus other stuff that you're concerned with. Plus, they built a competing platform. Plus. And it's one of those things where I think the answer is a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. I think they had the evidence certainly that there was shill bidding going on, but and I'll just say it, Probstein's had that for years. They're still on the platform. They've had the accusation, just so we phrase it correctly. They've been accused of that forever. They're still on the platform. There's a bunch of other consigners that have been accused of that forever. They're still on the platform. So Dave, and a lot of times in the comments, this is consistent with Dave's comments a lot of times in the page. He talks about the fraud element. It's like the hobby clearly doesn't seem to be that concerned about it. Because historically, these companies continue to operate. And I'll give you an example outside the space. Collectors purchase WADA, and go look up some of the interesting, let's use interesting in quotation marks, interesting history of WADA and how it came into be and how it rose to prominence. And it got bought out, and no one cares. And I'm just stating it. And the information's out there. I think it's Halpern. Go look a little bit into Halpern, his history with it, and how WADA rose to prominence originally when there was already a video game creator at the time. Now it's under new management. All the sins have been washed away. That's basically what happened. So kind of in relation to legal exposure, I doubt it. I'm just being honest. I doubt it. If they were leveraged the Wall Street equity company at the 11th hour, then these guys don't give a damn about anything other than money. They could, but I think they're going to run the company. I'm sure most of the inventory of PWCC was debt. I think there was a lot of debt involved in that deal. I think the taking care of the debt was a big part of that negotiation. Mm-hmm. To wipe away the sins, so to speak, the financial sins, if nothing else. They would take all the PWCC inventory and sell it tomorrow for whatever they could. Market be damned. Yeah, if it was bought by a purely equity firm, yes. Fanatics is sort of an equity firm, but they're also an equity firm that wants they want all these verticals in the hobby. So they have a good reason to hang on to it and use it and leverage it. They might just rebrand it, by the way. They might, honestly, the simplest way they could do this is not call it PWCC anymore. Just call it, Fanatics platform or whatever. And they'd be like, it's like, did you guys just reskin the PWCC website? The weekly and monthly auction are just powered by Fanatics. And that's all it says? Yep. That's all they did, is they took the same platform and stuck a Fanatics logo on top. They literally just taped it on top of the PWCC logo. They could 100% do that. And by the way, I could totally see them doing it. Mm-hmm. Why not? It makes business, again, goes back to our theme of tonight. It makes business sense. Yeah. You're trying to make money. You're trying to do all the pieces from end to end. That's part of the equation. Peter says, I saw an Instagram story post, random person, the PWCC owned cards they were liquidating were pulled from PWCC auction market. So I believe this to be true. I don't know the specifics, but remember, they had the loan program and the cards were collateral. So if people didn't pay their loans and basically said, take the cards, I already took the money, gone, then they do own that inventory technically. So to Brad's point, to his question, when you bought PWCC, in effect, you bought whatever they repoed from the people that owed them money. But the problem is they had owed money too. So it created this problem where the profits from this were going to pay their debts. And as soon as that dried up, all of a sudden you're in, DEFCON 1, lights are going off. Guys, we got to pay this back. What are we going to do? See? Even the dogs are upset about it. That's how crazy it is. Man. But just imagine that. So you're sitting in that boardroom and you realize that a debt payment's about to come up. And this cash cow that you had, this financial instrument arm, has suddenly turned on you because you've got all these assets that are worth 1/3 of what they were at the time that you gave out these loans. You lent out all this money at this interest rate. The interest isn't coming in. And you've got these cards, yes. But what are you going to do? Fire sale them? You're not going to get enough money to pay back the loan. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you're in a problem. You're in a liquidity cash crunch. Brad gave you the example. This is a high dollar business. Well, if you created a scenario where now you need a lot of cash and you don't have it, that is a liquidity crunch. That is immediate DEFCON 1. And that is, please buy us and bail us out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's probably, again, back to that, I get that stuff's very interesting to me from the business side of things. And at the end of the day, I hope everyone at PWCC, I hope jobs are kept. People, we forget about that. We talk about it. People are bashing this and talking about that. But besides, there's a lot of employees at PWCC. And hopefully this whole transition saves a lot of jobs and keeps people employed and keeps things rolling, because you can say what you want about that, but yeah, you do have to care about, there's always people attached to companies.
Of course.
Sometimes we forget about that.
For sure. Good call out. James says good example. Yeah. Like I said, no, if you guys are interested, check out the water thing. Again, it is not my role here to cast judgment as person. I'll give you the information. Do with it as you will. Go do your own digging into it. But I'll tell you, it's a good example, because WADA, at the tail end of its run there, had a lot of people looking at it very side-eye, because there's a lot of stuff like, I don't know about this. And then collectors bought it and they rebranded it. But the thing is, some of the executives are still kind of hanging around. They're still around. But now it's under the collector's umbrella. So it's like, no, sorry, new management. And it is technically, it is new management. And in that case, they didn't even have to rebrand, but they hadn't been around as long. But the early days of that company have some very interesting connections to folks in the coin world who have a history of some very interesting things. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Canada Blue here, good evening. PWCC auction platform is worth money. Yes, the platform is worth some money as well. So you think Goodwill is worth anything? So say they buy PWCC with $1 and assume all liability. They have access to the books and take into account the unknown factor. I'm not sure how the Goodwill plays into it, but I get what you're saying, that they didn't buy it for $1, but they definitely bought it on the cheap and then assume the liability. They have access to the books and take into account the unknown factor. I'm not sure about that last part. I'm not sure what you're getting at. But I do think that the equity part was a big part of that deal, was taking care of that debt, making sure it was fixed, and basically stabilizing the company. In effect, stabilizing the company and letting them to continue to be able to operate. Really no goodwill. Yeah, well, there's no goodwill involved at all. It's strictly a business deal. Honestly, Fanatics wouldn't have bought PWCC if they weren't in that position, because they're like, oh, this is probably a good opportunity for us. They just looked at it. It's a business opportunity for them. They're just like, oh, you guys are in a little bit of trouble? Okay, so that means we can negotiate very favorable terms. We're interested. Let's talk. Right? Like, you got to understand, Fanatics is ruthless. And I don't blame them for that. It's business for them. They're like, oh, it's the same thing happened with Topps. They purchased Topps, and Topps got, Topps put a brave face on it. But Topps was moments away from getting a SPAC that was going to make them $1 billion company. They took the license out from under them. Suddenly, Topps wasn't going to be worth as much. The SPAC fell apart, and Topps was sitting there with a license that was about to expire and not enough assets to make it worth their while to continue the way they were going. And then, within very short order, a deal was struck to purchase Topps. Isn't that interesting how that works? And who's the one who did that deal? At the 11th hour, at the worst possible time for Topps to lose their license. Fanatics goes, so, shame that you're not going to have the baseball license anymore, Topps. And they're like, yeah, so we're not interested in the SPAC anymore? No. It's ruthless. Yeah. Utterly ruthless. I like it. I'm a fan. So Dave says, if Fanatics are going to grow the hobby and then rebranding a new management is ultimately the answer. I think there will be a rebrand. I do believe that, honestly. I think there's some baggers with the PWCC name. Again, I think they'll keep the platform, but maybe reskin it and call it something else. But keep the base platform and the base business model. I think they'll keep it, because there's the vault, I think, is still valuable to them. I think they're going to be interested in that.
Definitely.
So access to the books, I mean, they could see who is owed what. Yes. Yeah, well, that would be part of acquiring the company. So that part I agree with. So here, I have to disagree, Brad. Not all people are good, decent people. Well, that's true. I agree with that.
I think, and Dave, obviously, I don't know what Dave read into what I said. Sometimes you can't just paint everybody, is what I was trying to bring up the point. There's all kinds of terrible people in this world and not decent people in this hobby, in this world in general. But when you look over it, it's just sometimes you get so focused on not liking something or someone at somewheres, and you just hate them. You hate the teller at the Atlantic Superstore when you go in there for groceries, and you're going to paint Superstore as a bad place. It's not necessarily, obviously, it's not the case, right?
Oh, for sure. And speaking specifically with Brent for PWCC, the
Yep.
only thing he did for the hobby was fill in Master's shoes. But kind of playing Dave's question from earlier, his suggestion from earlier, Master did a live with Probsty, and they got to chum around and hang out. Maybe that was about a year ago now, give or take. And it's like, and I laughed because as soon as that came out, I was like, so do I need to remind you all, Master literally went to jail for things related to his auction house? And in the discussion, he acknowledged that he's selling some of his stuff through his buddy Probstein, and they had a nice little chat amongst buddies there and everything. It's like, is no one else concerned about this? Is this not an issue that some? It's like, but if Bill Mastro, as infamous as he is in the hobby for all this stuff, can still hang around, go to the National, and go do this thing. Again, this hobby is a very forgiving place, Brad. A very forgiving place.
Oh, absolutely.
We are forgiving people. Luke, you are a forgiving man, and I want to thank you for it. Nothing but forgiveness. People in business of the hobby are hurting right now. As a buyer, I find a lot of sellers are desperate these days. There's definitely a lot of that. That does play into it. Luke is meditating, Hockey 99. You should try it. It's good for your mind. It's good for the soul. It's good for the soul. But yeah. I did want to touch on the PWCC topic, though, a little bit, because obviously it is the topic du jour at the moment. Until we move on to the next one. We'll have another one. Give us another 2 or 3 days and we'll come up with something. We'll have another one. Probably somebody will acquire something. But it's always fun. I like the business side of it, though. I'm like Brad in that sense. I do like the business side of it. It interests me. I would love to know more of the specifics, the real timeline, like how exactly they came from point A to point B, and some of those details in that deal. But once they walk into that room, to put it this way, I expect that nothing will change at PWCC today or tomorrow, but there will be an announcement sometime down the road. I think a rebrand will be coming. I don't know what it's going to look like, what it's going to be. I'm sure it'll be the Fanatics involved, but I expect it. I expect it to come. Master can hang around because he kept quiet. Perhaps Doug Allen will speak when he gets up. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe. There's a lot of folks out there who have a lot of things they could say. So that part's true.
Yep, I agree.
Luke, are we good? Are we good for the night?
I think we're good.
I think so.
I think so. The best part is we started an hour earlier, Luke, and you're in the earliest time zone of the three of us. What do you...
This is no, but it's just messages, and I'm trying to get back to them, and yeah.
Fair enough. All right. So thank you all. This was actually, I think, our longest episode, but we covered a lot of ground tonight. So it was good. So I actually enjoyed it. Again, this is going to be our new time slot. We're going to do 8 p.m. Eastern. It's good. Don't expect them all to be nearly 2 hours. We had a lot to talk about today. We actually had a lot of good topics, but we would like to, like I said, 2 things. First, thank you all in the chat for the engagement. That's really some good comments and questions. Thank you for that. Second, I also would love for you to hit the like button on the way out. We do charge Eric for that. Third, if you check it out on the replay, love to get your comments and thoughts in there. Also, suggestions for types of videos and content that you would like to see on the channel, because we do want to incorporate more videos. We talked about a couple of examples, but I'd like to get any other suggestions you might have that might be helpful to you. I want information that'll help you. If it's something that we can provide that'll be of assistance to you, we'd like to provide that. That'd be a good one. And I promise that I will not allow Brad to do any reviews of any of your cards because for reasons, and I will also not let him make prospect picks for you, especially if it involves pitchers. I will protect you all from that. That is my personal guarantee.
That's fair. That's fair. I take it. Yes.
Yeah. But thank you all for hanging out. Appreciate you as always. We'll be back on the next episode. Have a good night, and we'll catch you in the next one.